Good afternoon. I'm looking for Madam Nansala, wherever you are. So karibuni sana. We are going to start the next session, which is the sector for energy infrastructure and ICT. But before we do that, we'll have a word of prayer from Nansala, please.
Naomba tusimame tafadhali. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Our Father and our God, in the name of Jesus, we approach your throne of mercy this afternoon with thanksgiving in our hearts. King of glory, as we start this session to discuss matters, energy, infrastructure, and ICT, as we present our budget proposals and deliberate with our stakeholders, King of glory, we invite your presence that to be amongst us. Thank you, for this is the day you have made. And as we start this meeting, we want to start with you and start in you to the very end. For this is our humble prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you very much. It is now my humble pleasure and duty to invite the session chair, PS Isaboke. PS, please welcome.
Thank you, Director Riga. Good afternoon, everyone. As you've heard, my name is Stephen Isaboke. I am the Principal Secretary for Broadcasting and Telecommunications in the Ministry of Information, Communication and Digital Economy, which in fact is one of the line ministries in the energy, infrastructure and ICT sector, which is actually going to actually represent our budget proposals under this public participation process that is undergoing. Just before and in this forum, I'm actually acting as a session chair, while my colleague will actually be representing on behalf of the sector as a sector chair. So just before we share our presentation through one of our PS colleagues, because I've got several colleagues in the room, it's appropriate for me to give them a chance to introduce themselves in person, so you can hear the PSs present, and then we'll also announce the other PSs who are represented, and then we'll actually follow through the program. So I give my turn through, starting with PS Washira, going that way.
Thank you, our session chair for today, and you're doing a good job. My name is Alex Washira, PS State Badman for Energy. It's a pleasure to be here as we represent our plan for the financial year 26-27 as we seek to implement the better economic transformation agenda, the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Thank you, Session Chair.
Thank you, PS Washira. Next.
I am John Tanui, Principal Secretary in charge of ICT and Digital Economy. Welcome.
Thank you, PS Engineer Tanui. Next.
Thank you so much, Session Chair. My name is Engineer Joseph Bogwa, the PS for Roads.
Thank you, Engineer Mbugwa. Next.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Ibrahim Abdi, Head of Administration Department, State Department for Transport, starting in for the PS Transport, Mr. Mohamed Dakar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So those are the PSs present and also reps. Just checking if there's another PS rep sitting in the session. Do you have a, you can, yeah, okay. Sorry? So Okongo George, representing PS Shipping and Maritime. Thank you. So that represents the PSs present, and I'm sure the other state, this. Mr. Dismas Ogot representing the PS for Petroleum, my friend Mohammed Liban. So those are the PS reps, and we also have obviously chief officers and senior executives representing state departments. As we start the sessions, we obviously will be taken through by our sector chair, and then the way the format of this process goes is that at the end of it, the public and all the stakeholders will be given a chance to ask questions, seek clarifications, and obviously make comments to this very important process. Just before I usher the chair of the session to make the presentation, I just want to give a highlight that in the morning, I was present here with a few PS colleagues when the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and the National Treasury team actually presented the opening session for this. And as you know, this process is basically anchored in the Kenyan Constitution that actually dictates that any of these processes, budget making or anything impacting on the public, must actually go through public participation. So what we are doing this afternoon for energy, infrastructure, and ICT is fulfilling that constitutional mandate. And as you hear from the description, energy, infrastructure, and ICT is actually an enabler sector. It's an enabler component of our entire economic delivery. And as you know, the fifth administration of His Excellency the President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, has got 5 pillars that actually drive his economic agenda. And you will see among these components that will present, a number of them actually fit into the 5 pillars. Just to say, so much has gone on, and it's good that we are actually getting participation from the public so that we can actually showcase all the good work that has gone in, especially in infrastructure and all these developments, to support the President in delivering his key mandate. So with those few remarks, I want to invite my friend and colleague, Engineer John Tanui, who will then take us through a presentation that combines the entire segment of that sector, combining energy, infrastructure, and ICT. And then at the end, I will also come up now to start moderating in terms of the public engagement. I thank you.
Thank you very much, colleague PS Stephen Isaboke. I'll be taking you through our sector presentation. As I mentioned, Engineer John Tanui, Principal Secretary in charge of the State Department for ICT and the Digital Economy. Our sector chair is actually Joel Armoyang, PS Public Works, who is currently on an assignment. The presentation will cover a number of areas, a brief introduction, and share our achievements during the financial year 2022 to 2023 to 2024-25, and also analysis of our expenditure trends from 2022-2023 financial year to 2024-25. And also key medium-term priorities for the coming financial year 26-27 to 28-29, and also share our resource allocation for the financial year 26-27 to 28-29. We will also touch on some emerging issues, challenges, and we'll look at some of our recommendations. As a sector, we have a vision which is to be a world-class provider of cost-effective public utilities, infrastructure facilities, and services in energy, transport, ICT, maritime industry, and built environment. So that's the scope of the areas, and the mission is to provide efficient, affordable, and reliable infrastructure and services for sustainable economic growth and development. We've set a number of our goals, one being sustainable infrastructure development, access to ICT, transport and built environment services, enhance shipping and maritime industry, ensure we have affordable, reliable, quality and competitive energy, petroleum products and services, and also efficient and effective transport systems. Some of the strategies that we have adopted include formulation and review and coordination of policies, legal and institutional frameworks we need to put in place. We need to look at how to modernize, maintain and integrate safe and efficient transport system, facilitate access to adequate, decent and affordable housing, strengthen our infrastructure and make it environmentally friendly, enhance access to reliable petroleum products, exploit our energy resources as a country, also enhance access to clean, reliable and competitive energy services, create reliable and affordable telecommunication infrastructure across the country, facilitate information and communication development, promote shipping and maritime, and also safe and efficient aerospace. We bring together 10 subsectors, 12 autonomous government agencies, 35 SACCOs. This includes roads led by our colleague PS Mbukwa Wisia, PS Transport, PS Dhaka. We have shipping and maritime by PS Aden Miller. We have housing and urban development under PS Inga. We have public works, who is the current chair, the outgoing chair for the sector, and Choil Aromayang. We have also aviation and aerospace development under PS Mbaika, ICT and digital economy, which I lead, broadcasting and telecommunication, our session chair, PS Isaboke, energy by PS, led by PS Alex, PS Alex, and then Washira, and the last one is petroleum by PS Lipan. So it brings all those 5 sectors. So some of the achievement, I'll go through each of the subsectors. In roads, over the period, we've been able to construct over 1,798 kilometers of roads, rehabilitated 305 kilometers of roads, routine maintenance of 102,561 kilometers. We've also done periodic maintenance for over 2,111 kilometers. We've also undertaken performance-based contract maintenance for over 28,844 kilometers. Within the transport sector, during the same period, we've constructed Miritini MGR station, Mombasa terminus, new MGR link, and the railway bridges across Makupa Causeway to provide fast and last mile connectivity to our SGR for our passengers. We've completed also development of Shimoni Fish Port and equipped Berth 16 in Mombasa Port. We've also completed refurbishment of Terminal 1B and C at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. We've also done development of the National E-Mobility Policy. We've also developed the National Road Safety Action Plan 2024 to 2025. We've developed the National Logistics and Freight Strategy for Horticulture, Exports, and the Naivasha Tripod Master Plan already developed. Within the shipping and maritime, over the same period, we've inspected eligible ships that dock at the port of Mombasa, and we've also inspected over 3,242 small boats and vessels to improve maritime safety and security. We've trained over 13,000 youths in various maritime courses. We've recruited over 4,000 seafarers to serve our international vessels. We've also signed 4 memorandum of understanding with Seychelles, Angola, Egypt, and South Korea to strengthen maritime relationship and more importantly, facilitate recruitment of Kenyan seafarers in those countries. We've also commenced construction of Kisumu Maritime Rescue and Coordination Center, which is currently at 20%. We've also established a Survival Training and Certification Center in Mombasa, currently at 17% completion rate. Within the housing sector, this is where we have quite a lot of exciting information. We've completed 2,185 affordable housing units. We've completed 605 in Bodeni, 1,008 in Mukuru, 110 in Omapay, and 390 institutional units. We've also constructed 83,000 affordable housing units to an average of 32%. 44,803 social housing to an average of 17%, and 11,527 institutional housing. We've completed 44 markets, 10 are market sheds, 30 are what we call economic stimulus program markets, and 4 are the modern markets. We've also done 239 markets, of which 34 are modern and 205 are ESP, under construction at an average of 48 completion level. We've installed 2,176 security lights, 82 floodlights, upgraded 65 kilometers of access roads to bitumen level, constructed 75 kilometers of drainage systems, issued 2,029 title deeds under the Kenya Informal Settlement Improvement Project. Within the public works subsector, we've completed construction of the new Mokowa Jetty. We've completed construction of 22 footbridges countrywide for safe crossing of rivers and movement in difficult terrains across the country. We've designed and documented and supervised 264 new government building projects and 225 buildings for rehabilitation and maintenance. We have inspected and audited 3,402 buildings and structures for safety. We've developed and initialized implementation of the National Building Code 2024. This is quite important for our country. This is to modernize Kenya's construction standards and improve the regulatory framework. We've registered 34,566 contractors and accredited 71,532 skilled construction workers for quality assurance. Within the ICT and digital economy, we have laid over 7,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable under the National Optic Fiber Backbone. This is under the government side. We've connected 82 hospitals, implemented 1,114 public institutions to high-speed internet. We've digitalized and onboarded 17,668 government services to the eCitizen digital platform. We've trained over 1.5 million youths through the Ajira and the other programs, including the Presidential Digital Talent Program and Chitume program. We have linked 182,568 youths to online job opportunities, promoting digital inclusion and employment within the period. Within the broadcasting and telecommunication subsector, we have produced 17,521 TV news items and disseminated 73,323 print news items. We have produced and disseminated 150 MyCav pull-out editions, 730 information and education communication materials, and 3 editions of the Kenya Yearbook. We have also provided on-the-job training to over 11,000 individuals, accredited 28,000 journalists, and trained over 2,000 media practitioners. We have allocated and utilized 7,897 public broadcasting hours, constructed and equipped 7 digital content production centers across the country. Within the energy sector, We've increased the installed power generation capacity from 160 megawatts to national grid from, we've increased by 160 megawatts by increasing the grid from the current previous 3,076 megawatts to 3,236 megawatts. We have constructed 405 kilometers of transmission lines, 5 new high voltage substations, 1,321 kilometers of medium voltage distribution lines, and 20 medium voltage distribution substations. We have constructed 5 new hybrid mini grids and installed 169,494 standalone solar home systems in off-grid areas. We have connected 185,481 customers to electricity, including 2,082 public facilities, and installed 27,027 street lighting points. We've constructed 8 institutional and 621 domestic biogas plants and subsidized 14,071 clean cook stoves. Within the petroleum subsector, we've completed pilot phase of the Clean Cooking Gas initiative in 20 public learning institutions and LPG reticulation in 1,080 social housing units in Mukuru. We've also reconstituted and reconfigured the Kenya Petroleum Exploration Block Map from 63 to 50 blocks and marketed 10 petroleum blocks. We have completed evaluation of gas potential and Atlas development block for Block 9. We have implemented the oil market stabilization program to ensure that the pricing of our oil in Kenya is stable. Next is the analysis of the expenditure for the same period, that is 2022-23, 24-25. So the sector utilized 1 trillion against an approved budget of 1.24 trillion, translating to an absorption rate of 85.7 over this period. We've also seen within the recurrent budget an expenditure which was 458.6 billion, and the approved budget was 485 billion. Absorption rate in that case translates to 94.4%. The actual development expenditure was 605 billion, and the approved budget was 756. This translates to an absorption rate of 80%. So you can see the details in the analysis for recurrent expenditure trends from 22-23 to 24-25, showing what was approved and the actual budgets, being the gross for 22-23 170 billion, and actual 167, and the same for 24-25 147, and the actual expenditure being 135 billion. So if you can go to the next one, analysis of development expenditure trends by economic classification. The same is presented in the table, and we have able to see the figures, and you can see what was approved and the actual expenditure, indicating the absorption rate as earlier indicated. Looking forward to the next medium term plan, that's 26, 27, 28, 29. Starting with the road sector, we aim to construct 1,891 kilometers of roads. We aim to rehabilitate 515 kilometers of roads. We intend to do maintenance under routine arrangement of 78,320 kilometers of roads. Under periodic maintenance, we intend to maintain 1,224 kilometers of roads. Under what we call performance-based contract maintenance, we aim to do 10,153 kilometers of roads. Within the transport sector, we anticipate to review the Kenya Ports Authority Act, which is Cap 391, also Traffic Act Cap 403. We also intend to develop a national urban transport policy. Develop national urban transport policy, railway bill, 50-year transport master plan, and a 10-year investment program. We also intend to develop the LAPSET corridor master plan and sustainable urban mobility plan for Nairobi and metropolitan area. Within the same period, we intend to complete the Riruta Ngong meter gauge railway line. We intend also to develop the first part of Tokokundu Special Economic Zone and construct part 19 of Mombasa Port. Within the shipping and maritime subsector, within the financial year 26, 27 to 28, 29, we intend to construct Survival Training and Certification Center and the Kenya Lake Victoria Maritime Communication Search and Rescue Center. We intend also to inspect eligible ships docking at the port of Mombasa for maritime safety. We also intend to train 23,000 youth on maritime courses. We also intend to recruit 14,900 seafarers. We also intend to clear 4,263 20-foot equivalent units of sea cargo and 600 metric tons of air cargo. Within the housing and urban development, we aim to construct 292,713 affordable and social housing units, 212,438 institutional housing units. We intend to construct 506 markets. We intend to establish 15 constituency appropriate building materials and technologies training centers and train 600 community groups for promotion of appropriate technologies. We intend to construct 230 kilometers of urban roads, 80-kilometer drainage systems, 155 kilometers of walkways, 25 markets, 15 public green parks, install 2,000 solar street lights, and 45 solar security lights under Second Kenya Urban Support Program. Under the public works subsector, we intend to construct 42 footbridges to enhance access to social amenities, construct 1,000 meters of Ndau and 290 meters of Kiwayu seawalls. We also intend to inspect and audit 6,000 buildings and structures for safety and test 360 buildings for structural integrity. We intend to register 30,000 contractors, 112,500 construction workers, 16,500 construction projects, and inspect 95,500 construction sites for compliance. And also we intend to develop 2 prototypes of cost-effective building materials and technologies. Within the aviation and aerospace development, we intend to rehabilitate runway at the Wilson International Airport, rehabilitate Kabunde, Ukunda, Kitale, Kakamega, and Mikori airstrips, and complete soil stabilization at Moi International Airport. We intend to acquire modern aircraft accident investigation testing and simulation equipment, and also establish a mini flight data recorder downloads and readout facility. We intend also to maintain aviation safety compliance level at over 85%, security compliance level of 93%, ICAO effective implementation score level of 70%, and air navigation service availability level of 98%. We also intend to achieve 20% completion of optical telescopes, laser ranging facilities, and the establishment of one antenna farm for attracting private sector investment in the aerospace activities. We also intend to identify and develop one suitable space port site and establish 2 assembly and integration and testing facilities. Within the ICT subsector, we intend to install 37,685 kilometers of backbone fiber. We intend to provide internet connectivity to 18,500 public institutions. We intend to install 22,456 public Wi-Fi hotspots. We intend to fully digitize the remaining services in government. We intend to establish the National Cybersecurity Agency to address our cybersecurity challenges. We also intend to establish National Security Operations Center and 7 sectoral security operations centers. We intend also to register data controllers and data processors to enhance data privacy and security within our country. Under the subsector of broadcasting and telecommunication, we intend to develop and review policies, legal and institutional frameworks to strengthen institutions. We intend to operationalize the National Communication Center and modernize Kenya National News Agency and our Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. We intend to publish 50 MyCAF pullouts and disseminate IEC materials on government policies. We intend to construct 16 studio mashinani centers, media technology museums, and install solar system in 42 KBC transmission stations. Within the energy sector, we intend to increase our installed capacity by another 275.5 megawatts and install 200 megawatts of battery energy storage system. We intend to construct 2,174 kilometers of transmission lines, 24 HV transmission substations, 946 kilometers of MV transmission lines, and 18 medium voltage transmission substations. We also intend to construct 38 new hybrid mini grids and install 75,000 standalone solar and home systems in off-grid areas. We intend to connect 900,000 new customers and 1,724 public facilities to electricity and install 45,000 street lights in various points across the country. We also intend to construct 36 institutional and 1,800 household biogas plants, as well as subsidize 10,000 clean cook stoves. Within the petroleum subsector, we intend to undertake geological, geochemical, and geophysical surveys in various petroleum blocks. We intend to market potential petroleum blocks to investors. We intend to implement South Logichar oil field development project, stabilize oil prices through the oil market stabilization program, and also fuel marking and monitoring to curb adulteration and diversion of products earmarked for exports. Also, we intend to work on LPG reticulation in our social housing projects. The resources we intend to utilize indicated for the various subsectors, the requirement and what we've allocated. Under the statement, the State Department for roads, our requirement is 74 billion. Our allocation is 73 billion. Under transport, our requirement is 9.6 billion. Allocation is 7.1 billion. Shipping and maritime is 5.9 billion. Allocation is 4.9. For housing and urban development, our requirement is 8.5, allocation is 5.6. This is for recurrent. And for public works, 4.6 is our requirement and allocation is 3.3. For State Department for Aviation and Aerospace Development, requirement is 13.5 billion, allocation is 13.2. And for ICT and digital economy, requirement is 7.3 billion, allocation is 3.5. For broadcasting and telecommunication, requirement is 9.9 and allocation is 5.9. For energy, requirement is 13.8, allocation is 13.1. And State Department for Petroleum, the requirement is 20.5 and allocation is 20.3. Under the development, the requirements for roads is 413 billion and the allocation is 1.153 billion. For transport, the requirement is 93 billion, the allocation is 56 billion. For shipping and maritime, the requirement is 3.7 billion, allocation is 1.3. For housing and urban development, the requirement is 140 billion and the allocation is 133.6. For public works, requirement is 5.8 and the allocation is 1.5. For aviation and aerospace, requirement is 1.6 and allocation is 479 million. For ICT and digital economy, the requirement is 32.5 billion. The allocation is 14.4 billion. For broadcasting and telecommunication, the requirement is 4.1 billion and the allocation is 430 million. For energy, the requirement is 155 billion and the allocation is 64.9 billion. Under petroleum, the requirement is 9.8 and the allocation is 9.8. So that is how the resources will be allocated. These were based on the available envelope and the ceilings, and prioritization based on our bottom-up transformation agenda, the Vision 2030, and the number of directives. In respect to emerging issues and challenges, we see quite a lot of issues on the policy, legal, and regulatory areas where we have a number of gaps. Some of the policies are not sufficient. Some work needs to be addressed because of the changes within the market environment. The second emerging issue, also in a challenge, is the constraints in our budget and the funding caps. So we are experiencing limited public resources. They're limiting and shrinking fiscal space and restricting capital investment across the sectors. And I think that's reflected in how we have allocated resources based on requirement. We're also seeing fragmented planning and coordination, which is something we need to work on so that projects avoid duplication and avoid disruption of our services and achieve efficient utilization of resources. We also inadequate data information sharing. There is lack of interoperability frameworks for data sharing between sectors. This limits integrated and evidence-based decision making. Another major issue that we have, and this week we witnessed this within the country and also globally, the cybersecurity and digital threats. Emerging cybersecurity and digital threats exposes multiple sectors to cybersecurity risks. We also have climate change, environmental pressure, extreme weather, disruption of our supply chains, non-responsive climate resilient designs, and also inadequate climate adaptation plans, which has exposed us and make us experience systemic vulnerabilities. There is also skill gaps and capacity constraints. There is shortage of multidisciplinary professionals. There is also inadequate skills and competencies to develop programs, which results to weak capacity in program management. In conclusion, Our sector, energy, infrastructure, and ICT is a key enabler in the realization of the bottom-up transformation agenda, and also the bottom-up, and also the fourth medium-term plan under the Kenya Vision 2030. We are very happy what we've achieved so far, and we are committed to see that in this coming medium term, we will be able to work and be more innovative to address the challenges we have listed and the emerging issues so that we can realize our set goals. We will leverage ICT infrastructure and facilities and services to enhance competitiveness of our country and efficiency of service delivery. We will also explore new funding models, including the PPP, to see how we can attract more private sector funding. So I'll stop there. We have a number of recommendations, which is some of the things I've talked about on policy and regulation, alternative and innovative financing mechanism, more coordinated planning, better information sharing. We will also look at building deployment of better cybersecurity. We've talked of establishing an agency dedicated to cybersecurity of the country. We will also adopt better climate resilient technologies and look at working on our human resource. You can see a number of pictures there of some of the projects. One is Kenol Sakana Marua. You can see the landscapes of our infrastructure changing. Next one is Kwa Chumfu dwelling. Next is Kitaru Interchange. Beautiful designs coming to shape. Karpatula Road. Some of landmark projects shaping our country and countryside. MGR line linking Mombasa terminus to Miritini station and Makupa Bridge. Kisumu, when you land in Kisumu, you see this new beautiful air navigation tower. Shimoni Fishing Port. New Mokowe Jetty in Lamu County. In our rural areas, crossing bridges, crossing some rivers, dangerous places, we've started seeing some change. Mumias East constituency. You can see the future of Kenya. Next slide. Kenya Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, from design to actual live pictures down there, ready for students and to be Africa's top research facility. Next slide, a place I would encourage you to visit. That's Concert Technopolis at night. You visit, and that's the future of our country as we walk the journey to be a first world. Next is Pomayangu Mukuru Estate, shaping the skyline of Nairobi, and all our urban centers is the emerging affordable housing. Next, Pomayangu in Omapay, 110 housing units, 220 housing units in Bahati, Nakuru. That's the next slide. The next slide is also housing units in Nakuru, Bondeni. The next is now markets to ensure where our mothers and traders do their work is safe and secure. That's Nyamira County, Nyasioko Market. Next is Karatina ESP Market. This is also shaping our school's environment, eliminating use of charcoal and wood, commissioning of Isiolo High School LPG reticulation. Next, construction of Kisumu Maritime Rescue Coordination Center, which is currently at 15% level of completion. This is a very important center. The next one, Survival Training and Certification Center. Next, Kabianga Distribution Power Station. 35 megawatts Menengai Ocean Power Plant, adding to our national grid. Studio Mashinani in Komarok, Nairobi. And that's the last slide. Asanteni sana. Thank you.
Please give another round of applause to PS Tanui. Thank you, PS. Members of the public and our stakeholders, as you've seen through the acting sector chair, we've actually, the sector, state departments and ministries have taken you through the key achievements over the past years, which in fact the PS crowned with evidence-based articulation. It did not just make a claim, but it showed pictorial evidence of some of the big mega projects we've delivered over that period. The PS also went through analysis of expenditure trends, because this is about public accountability and transparency, which in fact the Constitution requires. It tabulated all the analysis per sector, per state department. He also outlined the key medium-term priorities for the new budget cycle, 2026-27, which is actually what we are actually consulting on. And he also tabled the resource allocation, which he also clarified that is based on the envelope. Because resources are limited, as you heard in the morning, the CS for National Treasury did say that there is a fiscal constraint. We don't have all the revenue we need. We don't have all the funds we need to actually fund everything. So in a constrained environment, we then have to fit our priorities, and that's where the envelope comes in, and hence we're required to actually prioritize, and in the process really fit in what actually will have the biggest impact for our citizens and for the public. And I think that was tabulated, and we'll be also listening to feedback from the members of the public. And then the PS also shared emerging challenges, things like cybercrime and cyber attacks. That's actually been as recent as this week, which are some of the things we have to deal with, even as we also fund development projects. So with that very articulate presentation, I just want to lead to the next session, where we will invite a policy expert from Kipra, our friend Dr. James Gashancha, to take a few minutes to make a few comments on policy sort of pronouncements in terms of his own take around what the departments have actually presented. That will then open us to go into public participation, where we'll actually open the floor to members of the public to make comments or raise questions or clarifications. Thank you. Please welcome Dr. James Gashancha with a round of applause.
Thank you, Chair, PSs, and all participants. My name is James Kashanza from Kipra. I'll quickly discuss the MTEF for the sector. Yeah, so we'll begin with a synthesis of achievements. Then I'll also look at the role of the sector in value chains, economic transformation, and some ideas I had around quality of life. So from a quick synthesis of the MTEF report, I think we find there are factors behind the achievements, and there are also there are constraints to the achievements. Just to highlight a few, there was governance and leadership, compliance and coordination were factors which enabled the achievements in the previous cycle. And some of them, another one was development partner assistance together with intergovernmental collaboration. But there are also constraints such as funding and finance. I think land-related issues came out a lot across all the subsectors. This was mentioned on the reasons why the targets were not achieved, so procurement delays, and issues to do with the planning, design, and scope of projects changing along the implementation cycle. Moving on to the next item, there are some lessons I picked up just to see what we can do. For instance, focusing on the constraints on donor-related issues, I think enhanced coordination and synergy between national and county, national government line ministries and county governments could help address some of the challenges where you find there are some resources or some infrastructure or or capacities that certain agencies have or the counties have which can be shared. Around land-related issues is, I think, enhancing coordination with the NLC and county governments, and for funding and finance, it would require an evaluation of sources of funding and financing during feasibility analysis. And then in terms of limited capacity, I think there was one lesson from one of the agencies that said they outsourced when they had limited capacity internally, they outsourced some of the activities. So moving on to a reflection on the sector and its contribution to the economy, as you had seen, is very important. But from my perspective, I was looking at it in terms of the value chains. And I think I liked the sector report in terms of its alignment with the value chains and what is in the MTP4, the better transformation agenda, and also the Vision 2030. So we find that there are key areas or key sectors of the economy, such as agriculture and livestock, which contribute highly to the GDP. They contribute highly to employment, and also they contribute a lot to exports. And you find then which sectors then of the EE sector, then transport there being a key player in that area. And I think also for manufacturing, the role of energy and transport there playing a key important role. So again, still on that value chain angle, looking at the performance, we find, like, for instance, in tea, there's some agenda around or some gaps around how roads and rail and logistics then could support Kenya's participation in global value chains and enhancing the value chains in tea, cut flowers, and vegetable and fruits. I think for vegetable and fruits, you saw what the PS presented in terms of markets, and I think that's now moving farmers, giving farmers a place to actually market their outputs. And now linking that with roads, and they have good quality roads, then the farmer is able to access markets easily. And I think from the analysis and the evidence we've seen from research and other jurisdictions is that when the farmers have easy access to market, then the costs that they incur in terms of producing and also affecting their well-being are catered for. In terms of, again, a question in the next slide. The question here is, does the EE sector performance limit Kenya's participation in global value chains? I think preliminary evidence shows that the sector constrains Kenya's comparative advantage and specialization in valuable stages of a value chain. So we want to move Kenya to a higher value stage of the value chains, and the sector plays a critical role in that. There's need for quality infrastructure in the EEII sector, quality services, and the issue of addressing additive costs due to EII, and the upstreamness and downstreamness caused by the role of EII. I think there's some evidence based again from the World Bank, this time from the demand side. What are people saying about the experiences with our EII sector, especially transport and logistics? So looking at some of the indicators, and this is some of the research Kipra is currently undertaking, to find out why is the demand side saying that there are certain indicators of the logistics performance index that are a challenge, and how are these affecting Kenya's competitiveness, job creation, and productivity. There's also, on the next slide, some evidence from the tea value chain. This is a study by UNCTAD. They talk of road quality challenges, multiple layers of authority, and high value of high fuel costs, and vehicle maintenance values and transit costs are some of the issues affecting the tea value chain. So linking EII sector to an important value chain in Kenya's economy, and what we need to focus on given the space of constrained resources. I think there's another observation we've made, that EII sector adds value to Kenya's economy through integrated mechanisms. For instance, transport, roads, and ICT. You'll see there from the horticulture value chain, where you have a cold chain which requires trucks which are refrigerated, and you require efficient logistics at the ports and custom operations. Moving along again, there's a framework also adopted in how the EI sector is playing a role in economic transformation. Maybe here, just to highlight in the interest of time, economic transformation here being that we want to move from we want to achieve middle income country status. And one aspect here, for instance, technology upgrading, and how EII sector then can move us and upgrade us from a middle upgrade us to middle to high-tech goods and services that we're producing as an economy. And a study also is a resource by Harvard University here, which looks at the complexity of a country's exports. And for Kenya, we see that one point there is that a country whose exports are more complex than expected for the income level, they grow faster. So how is IE sector again playing a role in the production of more complex goods and services? I think here what Kenya is doing well is in terms of business and insurance, and we can enhance complexity then in the IE sectors and support the various value chains. And then the next point I think is moving from the quantitatives coming to something of dealing with quality, from quantity towards quality. So the idea here is that the vision of Kenya, Vision 2030, also mentions we want to achieve a high quality of life to all citizens by 2030. EII sector is playing a big role in contributing to GDP, around combined 25% contribution to GDP. The PS, that there is projects and activities around energy to households, which affects the health and women and children, infrastructure in terms of sustainable mobility, and ICT in terms of digital connectivity and unity of addressing the digital divide. And then the question in this other slide is to what extent is the EII sector's MTEF aligned to enhance the quality of life of Kenyans? This is borrowing from the UN Habitat to the Quality of Life Initiative. And some of the issues here, equity, affordability, inclusion, were mentioned in the presentation by the PS. And I think the sector is playing a big role in meeting these lenses or these principles in terms of serving and improving the quality of life for Kenyans. I think that just a quick reflection in the next slide is what is the experience, for instance, of persons with disability when using the IEI sector products and services? For instance, when they are walking on roads, using matatus, accessing technology or cooking. And then the other question, has the IEI sector MTEF addressed these lived experiences? In the next slide, we'll find some evidence which has been produced, some by KIPRA and other by stakeholders and members of the public. And I think in the next slide, there's an idea around can we achieve demand responsive transport services? There's a Kenyan entrepreneur actually who's developed an app which is inclusive on-demand riding services, and this would address the problem we saw when we did a study with experiences of persons with disability when they're using public transport. The matatu business model cannot intricacies there. So maybe this city then with transport and the infrastructure then would be a good strategy. There's some examples where they have the demand responsive transport, and you can see the experiences from when they have developed from back in the year 2000 to the current and what they have for the future. In the next slide, again, just repeating in the interest of time, I'll go quickly. We'll share these slides. Yeah, so I think, just go to the next slide. The next slide. Yeah, so here is what lessons can we learn from other jurisdictions which have addressed these needs of people who are vulnerable. For instance, the equity of the transport deprived area should come with economic growth. There should be the public initiatives for demand rapid transit. There's a proactive investment and diverse pilot projects. I think one thing which can be explored in this sector is pilot projects combining ICT, transport, and the road sector, and also the private sector participation in that space. Again, another item still on the quality of life. Next slide. Here is about NMT. I think it's good that the sector has also developed road design manuals, which actually this is from the road design manuals, and we have the manual guiding on how the sections of the roads would be developed. So again, do we allocate sufficient resources towards this space of non-motorized transport users and the sector-specific expenditure on that? So the next slide, just some considerations. In terms of data programs and projects, so that was an emerging issue, and some of the challenges and proposals on the recommendations. And I think I also concur with that. And the point here is to have EII sector satellite accounts. I think the aviation sector have worked on an aviation satellite account. This one helps us to to understand actually how the sector is contributing to the economy and the people's lives, the impact analysis that now we can conduct if the data is available, and this will require that coordinated sharing of data. Then there's also coordination of EI sectors along value chains. For instance, there'll be various EI sectors which will come along the value chain of tea or leather products, or even manufacturing textiles and the like. So how can we coordinate the EI sector to support the various value chains which have been identified in the medium-term plans? Enhance programs and projects focused on quality of life, addressing inclusivity and equity, and allocate budget on research, development, and innovation. And I think there's a lot of good knowledge and skills and resources that the universities and the private sector have. So it's a more of coordination and working with them, bringing resources together because the resources are constrained. And then resilience and security, especially addressing issues to do with climate change, shocks, and unforeseen events that have affected or could affect the sector. Then just a takeaway, when the budget is scarce, when the budget is scarce, then prioritize the need of the most vulnerable and disadvantaged Kenyans. I think if you do this, then the rest, I think, will fall into place. All other members of society would be served if this is how we want to rationalize our budget making process. In the next slide, also on rationalization and prioritization of budgeting. Again, the budget is limited. Which roads should we fund or maintain? And the answer here would be to prioritize also based on network analysis or some studies. And I know there is the Road Sector Investment Program which tries to do this and identify the critical network that has to be maintained, at least so that all areas or all important nodes are connected and the economy can still function under a situation of constrained resources. So thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. James Gashancha. Please, another round of applause. So we've now come to the session to actually open the floor for public comments and questions. I think we'll give the questions. Obviously, my colleagues and myself will actually observe, and we give numbers so that maybe we take the first 5 questions, then we respond in turns. So the floor is open. I want to check the hands. The gentleman in white sort of a top. Sorry? The lady in blue. Yeah, the lady in blue. Maybe we start with the lady first. And then the 2 gentlemen on the same row, and then the guy in white. Then there is the gentleman sort of on my left. And you need to introduce yourself, give your name and maybe a sector, institution, or what you stand for, so people relate. And then obviously and that's also for purposes of follow-up. So then you ask your question, and then we'll take those questions. Thank you.
So hello, thank you so much. Standing in on behalf of children in the room. So first things first, we have a memo. I think it's possible if we could hand it over to the sector, energy and ICT. And second of all, before we move on, my personal concern was about, we heard the government is taking measures to see how possible it is to make like schools switch from using fossil fuel to LPG gases. So we want to know like how inclusive it is and how efficient is the progress of it. I think that one is directed to the PS Energy. And yeah, my fellow child had something to say. Thank you. And if it's okay, you would allow us to approach the podium for the memo.
Just before you step down, if you can introduce your name, please, and the institution, so we take note, because we need to keep a good record.
My name is Smith. I'm a child, 16-year-old.
Another recommendation. Hello, everyone. I am Felicitas Kokimoi. I'm a child too. I'm 14 years old. And I also have a recommendation. When it comes to the competency-based education and training. That's the curriculum that's right now being adopted by the Kenyan government. We study pre-technical studies in schools, in public schools. When it comes to this sector, ICT, if you take a good look, most children who study pre-technical studies lack computer knowledge, or let's say lack technology knowledge, because we don't have those facilities, for example, computer labs in public school. So it is our call to the sector that is energy infrastructure in the ICT sector to kindly step in and deal with this matter. Because if we introduce something in school, it means that for it to go well, we need to have computer labs, we need to have that literacy, and it's going to be good if we get allocation of funds in that sector. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Fortune Anjiro and I'm 14 years old. So, lack of digital infrastructure, including children with special needs. So, what I'm recommending is the government should provide enough materials for use to ensure efficient learning, like examples in Kilifi and the northern sides, and even the public schools. Yeah, and we recommend the children memorandum.
All protocols observed. My name is Lincoln. I am a children. So my question is, us as children, we lack of awareness on education on online platform exposes to inappropriate content. We may like the government kindly to fund digital literacy programs facing an exposure to inappropriate content. Yes.
Good afternoon. So my name is Vincent Tanui from Rift Valley Budget Hub. While I appreciate the constrained physical space, I have a problem with the tolling in roads. I think even as we say that there is no surplus money to build and maintain roads, I think we should exercise restraint when actually mandating the public to be able to pay to use the road. This is informed by the fact that most of motorists anyway pay road maintenance levy when they buy petrol and when they use when they are using their cars, or whether they are transiting, they pay road maintenance levy. So when you pay again to the toll station that you already paid in form of taxes, that's amount to double taxation. So for me, I think I should caution the ministry to exercise restraint when they are starting new infrastructure venture. I understand the new Rironi Mau Summit Road is expected to charge around 8 shillings per kilometer. That stretch of the road is about 150 kilometers. So a person who is using that particular stretch of the road will be paying about 2,200 shillings when they use that particular road. That is very expensive in my view. So I think the ministry should be able to look at it keenly to ensure that we balance between new development and also the fact that we are imposing new taxes to an overstretched population. Asante sana.
Thank you, and all protocols observed. My name is Agola Jack. I come from Abusia County. I represent the Lake Region Budget Hub, which is a network under Budget Hub. I have two concerns, and this falls to, actually three, but the main fall to the State Department for Roads. So number one, we've been actually following up with the status of the Rironi Mau Summit dueling. I think this is supposed to also go beyond that to Busia, because I think this is one of the main roads that connects Kenya to the East and Central Africa. We've not seen any major progress in terms of what's happening in dueling these roads. I think all of us here are aware of the challenges that commuters do go through, especially now that they're approaching festive seasons. We get a lot of people waste time and money just parking by the roadside overnight and even 2 days because of the challenges that we're having in these particular roads. Number two, now focusing on the road between Busia and Kisumu. It's quite disheartening because if you travel from Nairobi to Busia, the moment you reach Kisumu, you realize that you are not in Kenya because the road is in sorry state. Too much potholes, the motorists are really suffering, the road can't be passable, and there is absolutely nothing happening. And I mean, we're not seeing any action from the government to be able to address this. We're actually questioning the standard of roads and the construction work. Do we do this road for the sake of just repeating the same processes every now and then? I think that's an area that we need to be able to address. And then finally, in terms, again, still on the roads and maybe touching on the counties, I believe that the ministry gives policy guidelines and even the standards of how counties are supposed to be doing roads. But I'm very much, not happy, and especially for the old weather roads. Counties are allocating money for road graveling each financial year, which has become like a recurrent budget instead of development budget. So can the ministry be providing standards so that whenever a county government is doing an old weather road, we have a standard that these roads can at least push us for about 2-3 financial years so that we're not doing this road each financial year. And this is becoming actually one of the main areas where money is being embezzled in the proxy that we are doing roads for the connecting villages within our county governments across Kenya. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, give him a round of applause. So maybe just one more, and then we take those round of questions. This gentleman in our plaque, just if you can give the microphone, then we close there and we can respond. Yeah.
So my name is Clement Arua, and for purposes today, I'll present myself as a member of the public, an ordinary Kenyan. And the first thing is about energy. We know that there is price control in the field of energy, and every 14th of every month, EPRA gives the pump prices. But the model that they are using is a staggered method, where it is cheaper at the coast, where there is landing, and the further away, the more expensive. Price controls are not new in Kenya, but we used to have a model where people would share the cost of logistics. So that if kerosene retails at 150 in Mombasa, the same would attain in Turkana. The model that we have now is really punishing to the poor. So those who live further away from the pipeline infrastructure, Mombasa, Nairobi, Nakuru, Kisumu, that is the main pipeline infrastructure, they enjoy relatively cheaper prices, pump prices. And those who live, and the further you go away from this infrastructure, the poorer the people are. But then they pay even more, so that there is a deviation of as much as 10 shillings per liter. Why have we gone for that model and not the model that shares out the cost of logistics? There is a dictum that if all men suffer together, no individual will suffer. Why are we not going for that model? Why have we decided? And the petrol dealers are very comfortable. Why are they comfortable? Because this thing serves them well. They are not complaining. So when you see the businessman not complaining, you, the consumer, must worry. So we want to kick some heat so that if a particular product of petroleum retails at 150 in Nairobi per liter, the same, we understand that there is the cost of logistics. But in some things, if you go to Mabati rolling mills, if it is one sheet retailing us this much, the same attains even elsewhere. Why not using this model here? Number two, I want to use a particular ICT center as an example, the Ruiru ICT Center example. The seats, there is an ICT center there where young people go, mainly young people go for whatever engagement with the digital space. But the chairs provided there cannot even support the weight of a mosquito. All the chairs are broken. They were brought there the other day. I do go there. They have all, so please, the procurement officer in the ministry and even the supply, the supply end of the whole program, can the Ruiru ICT Center be made to serve as an example where you supply chairs that break in a matter of days? And then number 3, there is, I heard it said here that the government is going to allocate resources to those projects which are incomplete first before they start other new projects. Let us begin with if you go along Thika Superhighway and in some spaces in Nairobi, there was what we used to call, is it RBT? Infrastructure. That was being laid. Those things were abandoned. You go to Green Park here, everything has been vandalized and the whole project was abandoned, but millions were spent there. Can we please revive that? The abandonment of the transport infrastructure initiated by the previous regime. I'm not doing politics here. But the millions that went into laying that infrastructure, can that infrastructure be completed so that it does not end up as a white elephant? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to close this round of questions and allow my colleagues to actually take the questions in turns. And we'll be calling out the questions obviously as raised. I just want to also confirm that we've got our secretariat taking the details of the stakeholders raising the questions by name, by institution or entity they're representing, and the issues they are raising in terms of sector. So I think we got a series of questions from this side, and the first one was a child who was 16 years old called Smith, who raised a question around school switching from wood fuel to gas, and that was directed to the State Department of Energy. My colleague Bashira, maybe you and your colleagues, yeah, I know. So the rep for Petroleum PS, if you can please clarify that on that schools project, and we know there's something going on, very briefly, so we address that stakeholder. We don't have time on our side. Whoever is representing PS Lipan. The next one is yours.
Very much, session chair. My name is Dismas Ogota. I'm CFO Petroleum. Now, Smith, we are happy to say that as a State Department for Petroleum and the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, last financial year or the period beginning 2024-25, we did roll out the first pilot to 20 educational learning institutions of clean cooking gas under the Clean Cooking Gas for Schools project. And that project was aimed as you've said rightfully, to switch the usage of toxic aspects of cooking like firewood to clean energy because of very many health benefits that are, has been said by the session chair, which would accrue, I think the presenter, Engineer Tanui, PS, he did mention when presenting the benefits of the switch from mostly use of toxic fuel to clean cooking gas. Now, as a State Department, I think jointly with the Ministry of Education, this project is being directed by His Excellency the President to be rolled to all schools. And that then would be a big burden on the funding because of fiscal space. Then government directed that there would be use of private sector investment, and leading banks like the Kenya Commercial Bank have already been enlisted to support this program, and they've been very, very willing. They've come on board, and they are already gearing to go to roll to the rest of the schools, starting with boarding institutions. Just this week, the 2 PSS for State Department for Petroleum and the one for State Department for Basic Education met, and they agreed that they highlighted key issues, one of them being that there's funding already in the State Department for Basic Education, being supportive of this, so many, about $300 million that would be used. And that would then target as a rollout. Of course, the financial institutions will be investing, but of key importance would be that there'll be no burden to schools. So within the boarding budget for those schools that are boarding, which will be with big population, then they'll start with those, and then there will be 3 options. One would be clean cooking gas. The second option would be use of solar heating. Then the third one would be use of biomass. So schools will be allowed to choose between those 3. Of course, the initial first investment is higher for solar, and then followed by biomass, and then clean cooking gas is cheaper in the initial investment, but of course sustainability is higher. So then that's why schools be allowed to check between those 3 options, which one to adopt. So government will roll it up and ensure clean cooking gas, clean cooking methods are used in schools. Sorry. Thank you, Session Chair. I think that answers that question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I want to go to the next lot of questions, which in fact will be ICT. So my colleague here will take them, and I take the next 3 questions plus further down on Ruiru. So there was a question raised by Felistas around CPE, competence-based education, which in fact is also emphasizing technical, but she talked about lack of ICT facilities, including computer labs. That was from Felistas. Then there was Wanchiru, 14 years. Felistas, 14 years, and then Wanchiru, 14 years, asked about digital infrastructure, and especially dealing with children with disabilities, if that is also taken into account. Then there was another one, question from Lincoln, around lack of awareness of online education, digital literacy, and inappropriate content coming online. And then finally, there was a question from the gentleman who actually introduced himself as Clement Arua, who in fact says he's ordinary Kenyan. He probably will have branded himself the hustler, as you know in the Kenyan lingua. But he's raised a question around ICT center in Ruiru, and he says that he has seen young people using it, which I think is a positive thing, that in fact it's being utilized. He raised around issues around ergonomics, you know, the setup, their seats and all that. And he just was asking for a comment in the respect of the quality of furniture. I want to let my colleague P.S. Tanui to address those ICT questions.
Thank you very much. I want to appreciate especially very young Kenyans for their participation, Felistas and Wanchiru. The question of availing equitable education standard for our children is really very important. ICT is a tool that can bring equity. When we talk of additional 100,000 kilometers of fiber is to take connectivity to all parts of the country. We have committed to add in this term in our presentation additional 37,000 kilometers. This will ensure that most parts of the country are connected. We've committed also to connect a number of public institutions, including schools, and including using satellites so that we don't leave the remote areas. This will ensure that every part of the country is connected. In respect to devices, computers, we are working with our partners, including World Bank, through one of the projects we have called the Kenya Digital Economy Acceleration Program, where we are deploying smart screens or smart boards which can be used for teaching and enabling children to access similar infrastructure like that in any other advanced school, not only in the country but globally. We are deploying in 10,000 schools from early next year. This will ensure that our primary schools are exposed to that kind of infrastructure. We are also building the digital hubs across the country. We believe this also, one in every ward, will make a contribution to that, and we are working with partners, the members of parliament, to ensure they are equipped. One example which has been mentioned there is the aspect of Ruiru. Ruiru is one of the digital hubs. We'll go and check the details of Ruiru and see how we can support. We've been working with members of parliament, where the members of parliament do the building and provide the furniture. The government provides the internet and also the computers. So we will find out how we can address that. We are building at the moment 100 digital hubs by the national government, one center of excellence in every county so that it becomes a model. And we are doing also another standard, one in every county, so that this becomes models of digital hubs that we are intending to build. Lastly, there was a question about protection from inappropriate content. This is an emerging space that we need to make it more secure for our young people. We need to protect everyone in that space. So we are enhancing through the institutions we have. Data Protection and Privacy Office of the Data Commissioner is working to ensure the privacy of individuals is more enhanced. We are also working with our agencies, including Communication Authority, Kenya ICT Authority, Concert Technopolis, to our programs of awareness with our technology partners, including Microsoft and others, to enhance training for our teachers and for the general public for awareness, so that we can enhance safety for our children and ensure that those interacting in that space can make it safe for others. We are also looking at regulation, and you've seen some of the amendments we are implementing is aimed at making the space safe.
So the next lot of questions will actually be addressed by my colleague, PS Engineer Joseph Mbugwa. There was a question raised. It comes from the Rift Valley, and it was actually asking the question around tolling of roads, while there is actually road maintenance levy. I just want to highlight those series of questions so Engineer Mbugwa can address them as one lot. Then there was a Mr. Chuck Ogola from Busia who raised a couple of questions. He obviously has a big interest in that county, that part of the Republic. He asked about the Rironi Mau Summit and raised a question, when is it going to be extended to Busia? He has had talk about it. He's wanting to hear something on it. And then he also asked about Busia-Kisumu Road. He says that if you pass through there from Busia to Kisumu, you reach Kisumu, you don't know if you are in Kenya. That is his question. Those are his words. And then he also raised a question around that if government needs policy around on guidelines on roads, because he raised questions around all weather roads at the counties, which counties have now done as a perennial thing. They're doing annually when they should actually be done maybe once in 2-3 years. Those are the questions touching on roads, and I want to let PS Engineer Mbugwa to address. In fact, lastly, before, there's also the question around the rapid transport project that I think he pointed to, that you see a bit of infrastructure on the road, but it's abandoned. He also wanted to get a comment on it, and also regarding that incomplete projects should actually be done first before new. Engineer Mbugwa.
Thank you very much, Chancellor Share. I'm very grateful to have our friends, brothers and sisters, who are also very keen on matters infrastructure and specifically to do with roads. There is a brother from Rift Valley who talked about the money we pay under fuel levy and why we need to be more sensitive to the double taxation, and especially on matters to do with the tolling of some of our roads. Let me first of all remind ourselves that this year, around February running all the way to March, we had a series of public participation running across the whole country on the subject, road tolling policy. And this came out as an opportunity for our Kenyans to be able to interrogate this policy that drives to some of the anchored projects under tolling, and to have their own public participation. Why do I say this? This was an opportunity for us to demonstrate in our roads. And when you mention about fuel levy, this is a maintenance fund. It's not for construction of roads like Rironi Mau Summit. This is money that is corrected annually from our fuel that gives us an opportunity to be able to maintain most of the already constructed roads. To give just an example, we correct around 100 billion shillings in this country on fuel levy, which goes to various funding models. One, we have funds that go to the rural areas under the agency Kenya Rural Roads Authority, which gives constituencies an opportunity to utilize 22% and 10% of those monies to maintain roads within the constituency. Then we have 40% that goes to Kenya National Highway Authority to enable the agency to be able to maintain the national roads across the country. Then we also have 15% that goes to the Kenya Urban Roads Authority to enable the agency also to be able to maintain roads. So when you talk about fuel levy correction, the entire amount is distributed, including the 1% that goes to the KWS, to be able to maintain our park loads. So this money is not meant for construction of the new required roads. If you take yourself back to the precision that was made, we looked at how much we require for development, and we had a portfolio of about 413 billion. But what is allocated in our sector this coming in financial year is about not invade the fuel levy, because fuel levy is already distributed in the various agencies to be able to maintain the already expanding the Rironi Mau Summit Road, which will have now, currently has 2 lanes, and we are improving it to 6 lanes. You realize that a lot of capital investment is put in place. And this is what now brings around the PPP, the public-private partnership model of us to be able to invest in some of our infrastructures and come up with solutions into how we can enhance our road infrastructures. An example, when we did the public participation for the expressway from JKIA coming all the way to the city, we had similar engagement of people looking at it as a double taxation. But that investment called for huge investment. That's why private partners were also given an opportunity to invest their resources and recoup through tolling, because the money we correct under fuel levy may not, and our budget cannot be able to manage the portfolio. But I agree, all of us are very sensitive when it comes to the stretch on resources, and where especially they look at an issue like a double taxation. And to be honest, the upcoming Rironi Mau Summit road project, if you look at the entire number of lanes, if you're talking about 6 lanes, 3 on either side, and you will still reconstruct, if by any chance a section of the existing will be utilized, the new model, then you can imagine how heavy the investment is. And because we don't want to load further, because even the taxes that can raise the development account will still come from our taxes. And if the portfolio does not get adequate resources, we can now do what we call now, someone invest his own resources, like the way you do mortgaging, you mortgage a house, you go for a mortgage house, someone invests his money and recoups by the amount of money that you pay monthly or annually. So that is the spirit. And this was demonstrated during our public participation in the entire country, because we did not just look at the people in the Rift Valley. We also gave chance, because the touring policy is across the country. Today we are touring Rironi Mau Summit, tomorrow we'll be touring the Dongo Kudu roads and many others. So this was ably demonstrated, and should we require further clarification, will be available. Then I'm also very happy with Ogola from Busia. I know the Busia-Kisumu Road, you talked about a lack of proper maintenance. That's why people are not very happy, and this, I know, is due to the shortfall in our maintenance levy, and we are also looking forward to improving this road section so that the motorists can start enjoying a smooth riding service. But I was also very excited when you talked about the design and construction of roads, and even targeted the roads that we do as gravel roads. Surely, we have standards for both paved roads and also gravel roads, even earth roads. How you should form a road, do a camber that ensures that you drain your corridor properly, but mainly because of the budgetary provisions. You may find that, like the target institution that you have mentioned, the county government, it's not that standards are not there. But you may find that when they distribute their resources within the entire county, a road that may require 40 million gets an allocation of only 2 million. So it is thinly spread, and you may find that even when it comes to graveling, they only gravel certain sections on what we call spot graveling. But proper graveling have various specifications, including the thickness of the gravel. Why they do it like annual is because the amount of gravel that they invest in that road is very thin, such that when one rainfall comes on board, they lose the entire. So we are concerned, but again, this can be cured by allocating proper, adequate resources for even gravel roads, which should go for at least a minimum of 3 years if they are well done. You do proper shaping of the road, you gravel the road, you dump the gravel that is required, like 10 cubic meters per every 10 meters. You also now spread and compact. You find because of the limited resources, even some of the investment that they do, they just grade, spread, even proper compaction and watering is not done. And that's how we lose the investment. So I would look at it as not lack of standards, but inadequate funding on these roads. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, PS. So just lastly, I want our colleague PS Wachira to just comment on this Clement Arua's, the ordinary Kenyan as he describes himself, around this petroleum or kerosene fuel sort of pricing between Mombasa, Nairobi, Kisumu, as he described, and he actually quoted.
I forgot something. Our colleague Ogola talked about when we will extend the other section of Maraba and the rest. And to be honest, at the moment we are starting off with the Rironi Mau Summit, you have heard His Excellency pronouncing the same, and this could come in as a second phase once we are done with the Rironi Mau Summit. Thank you.
Thank you, PS. So this gentleman, Arua, described with a dictum that if all men suffer together, then no individual suffers because of this sort of a differential pricing. I'd like colleague PS to answer that, then also just wrap up for the sector, just overarching comments, including comments about projects which cut across administrations, because I think there's a guideline on that. PS.
Thank you, Sector Chair, for guiding us this far. Let me start by just adding one or two voices towards what PS Engineer Bogo has alluded to. Let me bring to the attention of Vincent Tanui that the entire sector, the energy infrastructure and ICT, we do require about 860 billion shillings for development expenditure, yet our allocation is 441 billion shillings. That tells you that there is a huge deficit, and you need to look at this in the entire space of the national budget, realizing that we do have competing interests and competing needs. Case in point, you have capitation to pay for schools, you do have CBAs that are being negotiated, you have human resource to pay, you have our forces, you have the civil service, you do have the foreign missions to run, you do have the hospitals to run, and county governments to run, you do have CDFs to run. All these have to run, and they are competing with the infrastructure sector. Now, with the infrastructure sector, we have just one single advantage, and I like what Vincent did, Agola did raise. And he said that if you look at the time factor of money, because when you delay moving from here to my summit, for example, when Kenyans are sleeping on the roads because of the constraint on that road, there is a time value of money which is costed. So when you allude to the 1,200 versus the time value of money, then you realize that there is saving that is going to happen. But the most important is that we must embrace as Kenyans, if we are to develop as we want to develop, we must embrace the structure of PPP, we must embrace the development of infrastructure projects using in private sector funds, and we must also embrace the infrastructure fund that His Excellency is trying and has asked us to embrace, looking at the 10,000 kilometers that we are talking about, the 10,000 megawatts that we are talking about. All that cannot be done using the normal government balance sheet. And to Mr. Arua, yes, you do bring a very good point. Differential in cost is mainly because of the logistics, and I appreciate that you appreciate that there is logistics, because there are pumping costs from Mombasa all the way to Eldoret. There are logistics companies that have to move that fuel from Eldoret, for example, to Lodwar, to Rokchar, from Mombasa to maybe Lamu, from Nairobi all the way to Mandera, to Isiolo, and so therefore that cost has to be catered for. But your point is well noted, and we shall be able to look into it. Chair, I think most of the other issues have been tackled. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please give a round of applause to the PSS. Esteemed members of the public, because of time constraint, I want to advise that any of the members of the public or stakeholders or institutions that will wish to make any comments or contributions, the website at the Treasury website is open for public submissions. You can either go online and actually submit, or in fact, also do a written memo or a submission again to Treasury, because that's where all these comments are being collected as we build this whole process of public consultation. In the interest of time, I would like to bring this session to a close and really thank the members of the public, all the stakeholders that came from the donor communities and all the sort of international financial institutions, our partners, stakeholders, members of the public, and indeed the people from the ministry who actually came to actually lead this session. I thank you.